Hey everybody, so I wanted to make a brief video over the differences between subjects design and within subjects design. We're first going to define what each of them are. First, within subject design, also known as repeated measures design, involves measuring participants multiple times in different conditions or with different measures. All right, now, so if we're talking about a true experimental within subjects design, this would involve giving all participants one condition, measuring them on some dB, and then giving them the other condition and measuring them on that same dV. So it's the same dV in both. What you've changed are the two conditions. Now, it's the same person. So one person is receiving condition 1, dV. Condition 2, dV. Again, same dV, different conditions. That's a within subjects design, or repeated measures. The dV is repeated. All right, repeated measures. One very common repeated measure that people think of as a pre-post design. Now, let me caution you strongly against that kind of design. In fact, one research methods book that I know of, frankly, flatly called a pre-post design a bad design. And it is a bad design. But not all repeated measures designs are pre-post test designs. All right. Now, a between subject design involves having two separate groups of people experience the two conditions. All right. And again, this can be extrapolated out to 3, 4, 5, an infinite number of conditions. But to keep it simple for presentation purposes, two conditions. So we have one group of people experiencing condition 1 and then being measured on the dV, and then a second group of people experiencing condition 2 and then being measured on the dV. Again, same dV. All right, but it's not repeated, so each person only receives the dV once, the dependent variable. They only get measured on the dependent variable once. Okay, so it's not repeated measures. Now, we're going to start with a within subject design, because a within subject design has a lot of strengths. Principal among those strengths are the ability that it allows you to have fewer participants. Okay, so for us especially, collecting participants, recruiting participants can be difficult. I mean, in fact, that can create the problem of what's called volunteerism. So the fewer people we need to collect for our design, the better. This is also beneficial for subfields where collecting participants is even more difficult. So, for example, certain subfields of clinical. For example, schizophrenia only affects about 1% of people across their lifespan. So there's not a whole lot of people with schizophrenia. So, within such a design, the strength of it needing fewer people makes this better. Now, or makes this difficulty collecting participants less intrusive or less harmful. Now, it also gives you the strength of being able to partial out error due to individual differences. Okay, so it allows you to kind of isolate and pull out any variance due to the individual difference variables, the individual differences among the participants in your study. Now, that being said, okay, within subjects designs also have some, at times, profoundly crippling weaknesses. Okay, many times this is a non-issue. All right, but with every design, these things must be considered. Okay, so what are these weaknesses? Well, the biggest weakness is kind of a class of weaknesses called carryover effects. Essentially, so again, let's remind ourselves what a within subjects design is. Each participant experiences condition 1, they get measured on the dV. They then experience condition 2 and get measured on the same dV again. Okay, so again, repeated measures get measured on the dV twice or more. If you had 5 conditions, they'd get measured on the dV after each condition, so they get measured on the dV 5 times. So, a carryover effect occurs when something encountered in the first condition affects the way a second condition affects the dV. So let's say that we're looking at the effect of threat on the ability to detect outgroup members. Okay, so some participants experience some threatening situation. Let's say that it is we put them in a task where they're supposed to detect changes in scenes. All right, and in our condition, we make the change in the scene the presence of a predator. Okay, so, in one scene, they see this nice lush green forest with no predator in it. In the next scene, there's a tiger, all right, snarling at them. And in another trial, in one scene, they see a neighborhood, and in the next scene, the thing that has changed is a snarling dog, full-sized, I don't know, some scary-looking dog. All right, maybe a wolf even. So we have, and they go through multiple trials like this. All right, see a scene, they see a second scene in which something has been changed, and their job is to as quickly as they can detect the change. But again, how long it takes them to do that, none of that's really relevant, because the manipulation is threatening them, and what they're detecting is a threatening stimulus. Okay, so that's the first condition. The second condition is our control condition. So, they see these images, but they maybe it's a similar change blindness kind of manipulation. So they see a scene, they see a second scene, and they have to identify what it is that changed. But in the second condition, the thing that changed is innocuous objects like a towel. All right, so in one scene they see a bathroom, and in the second scene they see the same bathroom, but a towel's been added. In another they see a kitchen. In the second scene they see the same kitchen, but a toaster oven has been added. So, innocuous objects. Okay, so you got your threat condition, where the thing that's being changed in this example is the presence of a predator, and then we have the control condition, where the thing being changed is some innocuous object. Now, in both, the DV is how long it takes them to detect the presence of an outgroup member. So on each trial, so they might have like 20 trials, all right, or more. And in each scene, they will see a group of people. And their job is to detect whether or not an outgroup member is present in that group of people. So as quickly as they can, they have to answer yes, there's an outgroup member, or no, there's not. Okay? So we want to look at the effect of threat on the ability to detect outgroup members. All right? Now, so we give, again, this is within subject design, we give them threatening condition, we measure them on the DV. How quickly can they identify an outgroup member is there or not? Then we give them the control condition, and they give them the same DV again. So it's a repeated measure, so they get the same DV and they do it again. So again, after the control condition, now they do the same thing that they did after the first condition. They have a series of photos, and they have to detect as quickly as they can how quickly an outgroup member is, or how quickly they can identify whether an outgroup member is or isn't present in each of those images. Now, in this hypothetical experiment, we're hoping to see if threat has an effect on the ability to detect outgroup members. So let's say we run the experiment like we've just described it, and suddenly we find that people in the control condition are actually better at detecting whether or not outgroup members are present. Or let's say we find nothing, that the groups are equivalent. Does that mean, so if we found nothing, does that mean that our threat condition did nothing? If we find something, if we find that the control condition is faster, does that mean that the threat condition actually interferes with their ability to detect outgroup members? Well, we have a problem here, because within group designs we have carryover effects. Anytime you have a task, all right, that requires some acclimation, requires some learning, that learning that took place in the first time you measured it is still there. It's already been learned during the second one. So any cues, abilities, shortcuts that were learned during the first time people did the DV, the first time they were trying to detect outgroup members, that's going to carry over. It's going to affect how they do, how quickly, how well they identify outgroup members in the second time they complete the DV. That's a carryover effect. All right. Now, in the way I've described it, they performed it once and it improves their ability to perform the second time. That's what we call a practice effect. All right. They've done it. They've practiced. When we practice a particular activity, we get better at it. All right. So that's a practice effect we get. It's when an initial performance on some measure improves a subsequent performance. Now, how could this practice effect cause both of the possibilities that I just mentioned? First, how could it make it look like the control condition has more of an effect? Well, it's possible that in real life, our threatening condition wasn't that threatening. If that's possible, then you have the practice effect. If that happens, then you have the practice effect improving performance the second time they perform the DV, but it looks like the neutral condition improved it, but it didn't. And in fact, again, if there is no effect of our conditions, it looks like our neutral condition had an effect when it didn't. That practice effect causes the effect, but it looks like the neutral condition had an effect. That means we have a confound, all right, which is a threat to internal validity, which is of vital importance in science. We have to have good internal validity, because if anything else could explain our results, we can't say much. All right, so that's the way. So if there was no real difference between our threat and our control conditions, then a practice effect, which is a kind of carryover effect, looks like it can create the appearance that our control condition did something different, or that our threat condition reduced the ability, but we don't know, you see. Now, because of the presence of the confound. Now, the other possibility was that there seems to be no difference between the effective threat on the ability to detect outgroup members versus the people's ability to detect outgroup members when they've experienced the control condition. Well, how could that happen? Well, if the threat condition actually did improve their ability to detect outgroup members, but the practice effect improved performance the second time around, then it artificially inflates. So threat increased their ability to detect outgroup members. The practice effect artificially inflates the ability to detect outgroup members the second time around. So it looks like there's no difference, when in reality there is if we were to control for the practice effect. All right? So these carryover effects can be very harmful, and you want to pay very careful attention on the assignment to the potential possibilities of carryover effects. Sometimes these carryover effects are so egregious that they make a within subject design impossible. Well, not impossible. It makes them the worst possible option, because it would completely destroy any internal validity that they had. All right. So, like for example, if you have some manipulation and you look at learning after that manipulation on something, and then you give them a second condition and you look at learning again, well, a within subject design is almost worthless if you're using the same apparatus for measurement of learning. All right, because they've already learned it. It doesn't matter what the second condition is, they've already learned it. So any learning that you might measure in the second one is not really learning. You're just remeasuring learning that happened in the first time. All right, so it makes a within subject design worthless. All right, it makes it the worst possible design. So within subject designs, when carryover effects are possible, within subject designs are your worst possible design. All right. Now, when you can completely rule out carryover effects, within subject designs are perfect. All right. Within subject designs are fantastic. All right. Don't need as many people. you can partial out error due to individual differences. I mean, it's a fantastic design. But when carryover effects loom, within subject designs are the worst. Okay, so when you have the possibility of carryover effects, you want a between subjects design. Now, what are the strengths of a between subject design? Well, as long as you're randomly assigning, okay, and you're performing a between subject design, again, between subject design, you have two groups of people. Each group of people experience a different condition and then complete the same DV. When you have this going on, there is absolutely no possibility for carryover effect whatsoever. All right, no possibilities. But it's essential that random assignment occur, because if it doesn't, then it's possible you could get some other confound. You could get all the people. So let's say let's go with the same design, or the same research question. Does threat affect the ability to detect outgroup members? Affect the ability to detect outgroup members? Well, if we don't randomly assign, then it is possible that we would get people who are frequent travelers. All right, so they would have, by nature of the fact that they travel a lot, they would have more practice in detecting outgroup members. Okay, and all the people in the control condition are people who've never spent much time outside of their state or something. All right. In this situation, if we were to find that people in the threat condition were better able to detect outgroup members than people in the control condition, we wouldn't be able to say, again, we have a confound. Again, we have a confound, so we can't tell whether or not it's because of the threat manipulation or because of this other individual difference. So as long as we have random assignment, we're golden. All right. Now, of course, random assignment, because it is random, there is still the possibility for this to occur, but it's less likely. All right. So between subject designs with random assignment, fantastic designs. But they do have their weaknesses. For example, because it's a between subject design, you've got to have far more participants. So, for example, let's say that we needed 50 participants. All right. Well, 25 for each condition. Well, we would actually need 50 people with the between subject design. If we had a within subject design, technically and we had two conditions, technically we'd only need 25 participants. Because if in a within subject design, they would provide responses in both. Two conditions in a within subject design, 25 people in condition one would also give us 25 people in the other. But with a between subject design, if we needed 25 people per condition, we would need 50 people. 25 people for the first condition and another 25 people for the second. So that's one of the big weaknesses of between subject design. And honestly, in practice, it's not that horrible. In fact, the between subject design for me personally is kind of my go-to. The within subject design I use when I do, it's kind of a perk. Because, I don't have to collect as many people. I end up still collecting a lot of people just to increase my power ever more. But I tend to lean towards the between subject design. I guess it's just the kind of what I happen to use most. Now, that pretty much covers the strengths and weaknesses and the things I wanted to highlight, and I wanted you to think about when you're doing the between versus within subjects design assignment. All right. Okay. If you have any questions, be sure to send them my way. If anything that I've mentioned, that I've described today is unclear, please send me questions. I want to clear it up. All right, guys. Have a good one, and I'll see you all later.